Hi, my name is Frank White and welcome to another episode of Photography Tips and Reviews. In this episode, I am going to talk about the best Canon EOS camera per genre of photography. By now, you have probably heard me say in some of my episodes that this camera is probably not so good for this, or this camera may be better if you're doing this. What I thought I'd do today is go through the list of what would make the best cameras for certain types or genres of photography. Now, we've got wedding photography, portrait photography, landscape photography, product photography, real estate photography, sports photography, wildlife photography, and photojournalism. And the cameras that I'm going to use are the 5D Mark IV, the 5DS/5DSR, the 6D, the 1DX Mark II, the 7D Mark II, and the 80D. Now, you notice that I kind of clumped the 5DS and 5DSR into one category of camera. And the reason I did that is because they are essentially the same camera. The difference is that the 5DSR has the anti-alias filter disabled. So what the anti-aliasing filter does is it helps reduce distortion, primarily caused by moire. Now, the anti-aliasing filter is also called the low-pass filter, and it's a filter that the manufacturers will build into the camera body, so it's really difficult for you to go in and remove your own AA filter. The AA filter, or the low-pass filter, does create a hit on your image quality. In fact, it's a big enough hit for Canon to have introduced that 5DSR in the 50 megapixel camera body. I'm going to tell you what I think would be the best camera bodies to use depending on which genre of photography or which type of photography you shoot. So, and hopefully this video will be timely because right now it is near Christmas time and you just may be deciding as we speak, now which camera body should I buy or invest in, because some of these camera bodies really is an investment for a lot of people, especially someone like me. All right, so we'll start with wedding photography, and for a wedding photographer there are four, I think, great cameras that you can choose from to capture weddings, and they are the 5D Mark IV, the 1DX Mark II, the 7D Mark II, and the 80D. Now, out of those cameras, I believe that the 5D Mark IV would be the best camera for a wedding photographer, primarily because, number one, you got a fantastic autofocusing system. And when you're doing wedding photography, grabbing focus and capturing that moment is primary. Number two, it's a full frame camera, so you are able to record all of the information that you need, and you got you can use lenses that give you the most creativity. So by being a full frame camera, if you want to mount the 85 1.2 onto that camera, then you could, and you would get you could do some really creative subject separation that you might not be able to do as well with a crop sensor camera like the 7D Mark II or the 80D. The reason I chose not to use the 1DX Mark II as the top dog for wedding photographers is because the resolution is not quite as high on that camera as it is on the 5D Mark IV. I can hear many of your voices already in my mind saying, I can't believe that he put the 80D in as a wedding photographer's camera. Gee whiz, it only has one SD slot, so if something happened to that SD slot, um, then wow, you know, all of the pictures are gone. And that is true. Shooting with the 80D is a risky, is a risk that you got to decide whether or not. But as far as capturing images and keeping up with everything, I think it is able to compete as a wedding photographer's camera. Moving on, let's talk about portraits. Now, for portraits, I chose, for portrait photography, I chose the 5D Mark IV, the EOS 5DS/5DS Aura, the EOS 6D, and I stopped there. Now, the reason that I chose these cameras for landscape is because they're all full frame cameras, so they are by default going to capture more information than your crop sensor cameras. But that's not to say that you can't make great landscape photos with a crop sensor camera, but I do think that for better landscape photography, then you ought to use a full frame camera. If you're going to shoot landscape, then chances are you intend to make some prints. And if you're going to make prints, then you want something that's going to render the most detail. And the 5D Mark IV has that 30 megapixel sensor, and the 6D has I think it's a 22.6 megapixel camera. Correct me if I'm wrong. I did make a note, so I'm just drawing from memory. And the 5DS and the 5DSR have that 50 megapixel camera, which is akin to a medium format camera. So with that 50 megapixels, you get crazy amounts of detail. So for that reason, I chose the 5DSR and the 5DS as the the primary camera for landscape. For product photography, then I feel like the same thing's going to apply depending on the products that you shoot. Now, oftentimes your client may want to create a poster of the products that you shoot. So again, you're going to need that as much information as you can get to really capture that detail and to have that detail to work with in post. So those are the reasons why I'm choosing the 5DSR and the 5DS for the camera for product photography. Now, so for real estate photography, our contenders are the 5D Mark IV, the 5DS/5DS Aura, the 6D, the 1D X Mark II, and the 80D. So those are the cameras that I think are probably best suited for real estate photography. And using the 80D is suspect, but I believe you could get away with it, especially since there is an excellent crop of lenses available for crop sensor cameras now. Now, the reason that I chose the 6D over the 5D Mark IV is because, generally speaking, you're not going to blow up your real estate pictures. You're going to give them to your real estate agent, and he or she are going to post them on the internet and perhaps make some product brochures out of them that will have some of the images in them, probably in a format that's small enough to use on a 8x10 or as a subset, or maybe a photo on an 8x10, and usually even smaller than that, but definitely on the web. the EOS 5D Mark IV, you might say, that's a much better camera for real estate photography than the EOS 6D. And yes, you're right. You can get more detail out of the 5D Mark IV, and you can get more detail out of the 5D Mark IV. But from a cost value proposition, the 6D make a lot more sense. Number one, the 6D is roughly a third of the cost of the 5D Mark IV, and the images that you're going to make with the camera is not going to be substantially the way that the images are going to, the way that you use real estate images, then you don't necessarily need 30 megapixels of data to generate the images. The strong points of the 6D for real estate is, number one, like the 5D Mark IV, you also get the geotagging, and you get you get Wi-Fi so that you can remotely shoot. That means that you can set the camera up and get out of the way, make your pictures, shoot with yourself. That entire remote tethering thing you can do. But you know, if my specialty is real estate and I need to go out and buy a camera, then, you know, am I going to spend $1,400 on a full frame EOS 6D, or am I going to spend $3,400 or $3,500 on the 5D Mark IV when the end result are going to be pictures that are never going to get blown up to poster size? You know, nobody's going to. A real estate agent, it's doubtful that your real estate agent is going to want to post a 5 foot by 9 foot picture of your of a living room somewhere or a house somewhere. And you know, conceivably, somebody may want a 3 by 5 wedding photo or a 3 by 5 portrait, or even a 6 foot by 12 foot. Well, the aspect ratio don't make sense, but a 12 foot on the wide side product photo. You just, you know, that could happen. Anyway, so that's my case for recommending the 6D for real estate photography. For sports photography, the contenders are the 1DX Mark II, the 7D Mark II, and the 80D. The best camera, in my opinion, for sports photographers is the 7D Mark II. And I don't think you're going to disagree with me. The 1DX Mark II is surely capable of being a sports photographer's camera, and in fact, a lot of sports photographers actually do shoot with the 1DX Mark II. So, you know, for me, it was kind of a toss-up between the two. But you know, when I think of shooting sports, I think of wanting to get in tight and frame that player, make sure that I've got, that I can capture, if possible, his facial expression. I know a lot of that, depending on what glass you're going to mount on that camera, but with that 7D Mark II crop factor, then I do get that extra little bit of reach. Now, I actually don't shoot sports, so you know, what I'm regurgitating here is what I've learned from you. For wildlife photography, I only got 2 contenders, and that is the 1DX Mark II and the 7D Mark II. Now, again, that crop factor will give me the extra reach no matter what glass that I'm mounting on it. And also if I'm shooting wildlife and I'm hiking, I'm lugging that camera in the backwoods, then not having that extra weight might be helpful. So for that reason, I think the best camera for wildlife, again, is that 7D Mark II. And finally, photojournalism. Now, which camera makes the best photojournalism camera? And of course, drum roll please, the 1DX Mark II. And the reason why is if you're doing photojournalism, then you're out and about. I mean, the whole point of being a photojournalism is to capture life as it happens. And you can't be worried about your camera getting banged around. That the 1DX Mark II does have that build quality, and it has a great autofocusing system. It's able to write to 2 cards at once so that you can instantly get a backup, or if you're in a situation where you need to shoot and you're rattling off and you need to fill up 2 cards. I mean, you can. You just got that versatility. But most of all, you got that build quality. You don't have to worry about your camera getting torn up. And it's, the 1DX Mark II is a really rugged, robust camera. It's probably one of the better cameras, and as you can see, in most of the categories, all but 2, the 1DX Mark II shows up as a contender, as do the 5D Mark IV shows up in most categories as a contender. Which naturally they would, because those 2 cameras are Canon's 2 flagship cameras, with the 1DX Mark II being the flagship camera. So guys, I hope I've been able to give you some really good information about which camera is the best body, depending on which genre of photography that you are buying it for. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. That will kind of let me know whether or not you have gotten any value out of this presentation. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscription button. Become a part of this community of photographers. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I will read them all and answer them when and wherever I can. And if you're going to shoot anybody today, shoot them with a Canon or a camera of your choice. And remember, no matter what, keep shooting, no matter what.